Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Sarah Punt, and I would like to introduce Rick Rose, running for Dane County Supervisor in District 16. As we begin, please give an opening statement about the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which prepares you for this office, and why you are running for Dane County Board.
Well, thanks so much. This is actually my third run for Dane County Board, so I'm very excited about that, having served my community on the far east side of Madison, as well as little communities like Sun Prairie and Burke. So I'm very excited that I have the opportunity to present to my 15,000 constituents and the folks of Dane County my record. And I think that's what I stand on today. And first of all, the educational part is really, really important to understand what county government is, especially in this day and age where we're hearing so much about national issues and federal challenges, that the closer you are to the people, the more the work gets done. So if you look at it this way, we're having a lot of really tough pressure right now from up above. We can give back that pressure in this way, in a way that serves our people. And one last note, I want to thank the League so much, because you guys always work so hard and diligent to get the education out there and inviting folks to these tables. So thank you for that. One last thing, as far as my experience, as of the last year and a half, I've now become a college professor since I've been elected. I retired during my second term. I'm now teaching at Beloit College in Rock County. And hearing the voice of Gen Z is really speaking to my heart these days. And so this, although I hear all people and the diverse community that represents my district, I really want to give special attention to the Gen Z community this election.
How should the county address the significant budget deficit expected for the 2027 budget?
With hope and promise. I think a lot happened in this last budget cycle between recommendations made by the executive's office, and that's the beauty of government, right? And then the recommendations and the amendments that were made by the county board. And I think we came to a good consensus. I'm not one that believes in compromise. I don't think it's you give me this and I'll give you that. I think it's really a project of consensus, that we can all leave the budget as is and move on knowing we can do better, but we can live with what we have. So I think the executive has done a tremendous job. Although I may be critical of parts of it, the overall presence and the work that went into it was very good. The critical part is simply like, we shouldn't have to take a pay cut, right? So it's not necessarily on the executive's office for doing that. It's just a bummer that we have to do those things. It affects people's pocketbooks. It affects people at a really hard time. But the work that we've done to make sure the human services and the needs are still being met, I think there was a good consensus there. I think the real work begins with the exciting things we're hearing right now with the center, maybe Frank Productions is becoming involved, the airport looking at being an international destination. So having a background in corporate America for 35 years, I think it's not about balancing a budget. It's about what we can do to really look at the positive, bring more revenue into the community. And that's something I would love to focus on more in this budget process for the next year.
What specific ideas do you have to increase the supply and quality of affordable housing and to preserve existing affordable housing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not a criticism here, but we keep continuing to call it affordable housing. And I'm just going to be real. None of this is affordable. It's not affordable on the pockets of the tax levy system. It's not affordable to the resident coming in. This is not just an isolated issue here in Dane County, although we know that Madison in specific is going to be one of those cities that is really one of the top 10 cities that's being focused on coming up with those costs. I think it's really looking at alternative ways of living. I think we're so tuned in here to building 2-floor buildings or ranch style homes. We should be looking, if we are as progressive as we say we are, look at some of these models that are out there in Arizona, these models that have existed in San Francisco for years, where there's community living and shared resources, making sure that sundries are available within a community. It's not just about building the residents, it's building a community so the residents can come together, save energy, save costs, to be able to lower the cost so we can someday really, hopefully really call it affordable housing.
What more, if anything, do you think the county needs to do to address the needs of our neighbors experiencing homelessness?
Take a breath there. You and I were talking just before cameras rolled. We're here on a very cold day. For context, this was recorded on Friday, the bitter cold day that it is. I have a cup of water and pretending it's heat because I know that's so critical. And living on the Far East Side, even though the Easttown Mall area or where the new men's center is being built isn't my exact location, it's where I live. So I think a thing to remember, even though I represent the 15,000 people I described on the Far East Side and appreciate your support, we're all also Dane County residents, and we have to be considerate of the needs of the entire community. It's things like harm reduction, making sure they get safe supplies. It's things like equity. It's giving people the same meal that I have, the same hand warmers that I can have. And I do that one-on-one by carrying it around in my car and making sure if there is a need when I'm going to Planet Fitness or when I'm going to Panera Bread, that I pick up an extra cup of coffee for someone. I think it begins with us. I think it begins with what I can do for my fellow Dane County resident, and in policy, making sure that I'm following through on that independent action as I make votes and decisions for my community and for Dane County.
When faced with making difficult, controversial decisions, how will you ensure you are getting input from residents with a broad range of perspectives?
Yeah, that's critical. I described diversity earlier, and that's really hard, again, when we have the federal crush saying people don't exist. One of my greatest joys in my first term was working on the trans sanctuary protection bill that we did here in a resolution that we did here in Dane County. And that was bringing all voices to the table, making sure they were heard. That came from a phone call from a mother who was afraid she would have to move with her son, who was terrified for his life here, even before the Trump era set in. So it's really bringing those voices to the table, hearing all sides, and kind of meeting people to understand what they truly mean. Recently, in the middle of a situation right now that revolves around a harm reduction center being placed, and those dollars are coming from the opioid settlement dollars. And the controversy right now is kind of, is the process fair? Has everybody been heard? And while I appreciate the process, we have to remember and trust that our counterparts in government seats are doing the best they can with the limited resources they have. And sometimes people are just coming, and I'm grateful for public input, just to be heard. But the real conversations happen outside those rooms. You know, it's great that we give a microphone to amplify that voice and put it into public context, but it's really good to have these one-on-one conversations and see where we really need to direct our resources.
Please describe any other priorities for your term in office. If these include new or expanded programs, how would you propose to fund them?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, most of my work, and I will put it out there, is to represent the voices still not at the tables. So if you look at my history of over 300 resolutions that I've been part of as a sponsor, they include the Indigenous community. We have a flag hanging in front of our county building that we're sitting here in Sarah, because I worked on making sure there would be a flag representing the land and the inhabitants of this land who still aren't represented on the county board. I have a voice for those that are incarcerated. I sit on public protection justice and hope to continue doing that work for our residents at the jail who don't have a voice because they're convicted felons and by the laws of our country currently cannot sit and be represented. It's important to make sure they hear a voice. The trans community, I'm glad to hear in this election we have non-binary representation as candidates. Those are the voices I will continue to speak for. And I'm currently going and circling around with anybody I've worked on before with that to see where we take it to the next level. And then lastly, in answer to your question, I really want to hear and amplify the voice of the Gen Z community. These are folks that are not living the setting. I'm making assessments here on age, but we were told as Americans we can own a home. That was the American dream. Now you're 40 years old before you can own a home. These young folks do not believe they'll own a home. And that's just a shift in the way we're looking at who America is and what Dane County is. So hearing their voice, their needs, and be able to give them roads to live the life that we were fortunate to live. And that also includes the work with data centers. We know AI has to be here. I'm proud that our county board has put together a commission on this. I'm proud Madison has put a moratorium on it because the impacts of AI, as much as we need it, will affect our environment. And this area is known for its lakes. So that's going to be something I really want to focus on that I think is really important too in the coming election.
And what would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
I don't even know where to look, but I will tell whoever's listening, even if you're not watching, Sarah, get out and vote. I mean, that's a big mission of the league as well. And we're living in an area, let's be real, we're living in an area where there's been some controversy and there's a lawsuit around what happened in the last election. I'd encourage you just to find out the right way to vote, what it means to do an absentee ballot. Follow the league and they will help you along the way. Follow my social medias, Rick Rose for Dane County. I will help and make sure your vote is registered and heard. So just get out and vote.
I want to thank Rick Rose for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that the primary election is Tuesday, February 17th, and the general election is Tuesday, April 7th. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.